So another Q&A video, but I wanted to give you guys a small update before I start things. If you've been following me on Facebook, my grandfather recently had a heart attack, and it seemed like he was going to pull through and things were going to be pretty okay, but he just had a massive heart attack again while he was in the hospital. His kidneys are starting to fail because of that. He also got a lung infection, and he might have permanent severe brain damage, and even if he did pull through, which there's a very, very, very small chance he would, he'd probably be in a vegetative state. So my family's decided to pull the plug, and we're gonna go do that tonight. And by the time this video is uploaded, that'll probably already happen. And don't bother writing in the comments section saying that you're sorry that my grandfather passed away. I can handle people dying pretty easily, and I'm pretty neutral about the whole situation, so don't bother saying anything like that. And this isn't really going to affect any kind of video production at all. Things are going to go along as planned, and you're probably going to see a video coming out either this Saturday or Sunday about my grandfather's heart attack, and I am going to warn you all ahead of time. It is going to be quite graphic. But other than that, the Lane Norton Worst of the Fitness Industry video is going to come out pretty soon. I'm going to upload this Q&A video into two parts, the first part coming out late tonight, and the other part coming out tomorrow, so that you'll have something to watch before I come out with the, Lane Norton Worst of the Fitness Industry video. And that's all I have to say, so let's start the Q&A. First question, how do you feel about vegetarians? Vegetarians, they might think they're doing good by, not eating meat, but that's not enough. You have to cut out dairy and eggs. If you're using vegetarianism as a stepping stone to get to veganism, then that's great. The sooner you do it, the better, of course, but if you think vegetarianism is good enough, then it's just not good enough. You're still supporting the torture and slaughter of animals by eating dairy and eggs. Do you recommend vegan BCAAs, vegan protein shakes, vegan supplements for bodybuilding? Are these even necessary for gains? Thank you. No, I don't recommend any of those things. BCAAs and protein powders, in my opinion, are completely useless. They're nutritionally deficient. If you want more protein in your diet, then eat more things like beans, lentils, high-protein grains like quinoa. They don't only just have protein, but they also have an assortment of vitamins and minerals and also fiber. And these refined protein products, especially soy products, they're very high in leucine, and it can potentially raise your cancer risk by increasing your IGF-1 levels. So I just avoid it entirely and stick to whole plant foods. Hey Vegan Gains, what are your career goals? I don't know if you could say I have career goals. Life just throws you curveballs, and you might end up doing things that you didn't expect you were going to do, but I just try and do things that I really enjoy, and I try and enjoy life as much as possible while making money, but money isn't a huge concern for me. I do want to be in a different situation than I am in now, and I'm working towards that. But I don't really focus on career. I focus on doing things that I enjoy and spreading the vegan message too. That's really all I really care about. Have you seen the Vegan Gains is a Liar video? If so, what did you think about it? I've seen it, and it's just fucking stupid. The guy just basically put words into my mouth and called me a liar, and I've seen videos like trashing me before, and I laugh at most of them, but that one was just fucking dumb, and it was just so stupid that I just ignored it, and I have no interest in responding to it just because it's fucking stupid. Hey Vegan Gains, is it possible to cycle and do bodybuilding at the same time? I enjoy cycling, and I want more of a lean physique versus looking like I'm packing on muscle, but I've heard from Durian Rider on one of his videos that you can't have one or the other, yet I see in a lot of your videos that you tend to cycle a lot. Yeah, you can do cycling and bodybuilding at the same time. Depending on how much cycling you do, it might get really difficult. The workload that I'm doing right now, it does get really difficult, and at this point I'm really just trying to maintain, and that's doing about 70-kilometer training rides every other day, plus maybe 20-30 kilometers on non-cycling training days. So that's pretty high. That's a lot of cycling for most people, and it is kind of hard to put on muscle when you're doing that much cycling, but If you're doing maybe 20, 30 kilometers every day or every other day, which is a lot more reasonable, then you shouldn't have any issues building muscle. Is there anything that is bad about being vegan if you're being completely honest? The only bad thing that I can possibly say about being vegan is you do have to be really careful about some of the things you buy at the store and when you're going out to eat, and it can be a bit difficult to find vegan restaurants, but depending on where you live, like in Toronto it's pretty easy. There's quite a few vegan restaurants around. The only thing is if you walk into a non-vegan restaurant, you do have to really check the menu and make sure that you check with a waiter or whatever that what you're ordering is vegan. And when you go to a store, of course, if you're buying any kind of processed food or, packaged goods, then you do have to make sure that it's vegan and you check the ingredients list and all that. But I generally recommend eating only whole foods and not eating out so much, so as long as you do that, it shouldn't really be that much of an inconvenience for you. What's your opinion of creatine? I don't think creatine is really a useful supplement. The only studies I've seen that show any kind of benefit are short-term, and it's particularly for vegans or vegetarians, and what happens is your body stops producing its own creatine when you're ingesting creatine, and eventually it'll just compensate for the increase in dietary creatine, and then you won't see any real benefits. So it's only a short-term gain, and for the money you're paying for it, does it really make any sense economically? And there is some evidence that a lot of creatine supplements are contaminated with some heavy metals. Plus, you really don't know what you're getting in the supplement industry, so I just avoid it. If you're going to pay like 20, 30 bucks a bottle for, a creatine supplement for a month, your money's better spent buying something like bananas. I see may contain eggs, nuts, milk on many baked good labels. I'm newish to the vegan lifestyle, so I had to ask one of the employees if these baked goods were vegan. She told me the labels are for cross-contamination and they're to protect people with allergies. Where I live, I don't have too many vegan options, so I made the ruling right there that I would eat that stuff very occasionally. Would the average vegan eat that, or fuck it, make their own to guarantee no cross-contamination? I wouldn't worry about cross-contamination unless you have allergies. It's really not a big deal. Like, you're talking about very small trace amounts of things, and if you're going to worry about trace amounts of shit in your products, then don't ever eat any food, because there's cross-contamination with animal products in literally everything you could possibly eat. There's insect parts in all of your fruits and vegetables, and rats get mixed into things, and you're probably eating some sort of trace amounts of rat blood or guts or something in anything you're eating, so don't really worry about trace amounts in products. I would avoid processed food anyways, and that's really where, you're going to have these kind of issues, so stay away from processed foods in general, but if you want to have something that might have something cross-contaminated in it, then I wouldn't worry about it. It's still vegan. If everyone went vegan, how would people go about reintroducing animals like cows and chickens into the wild after so many years of domesticating them? Could they survive? Is it better to have them as pets? This question I've never really seen covered, and it would be interesting to learn about. Well, the entire world isn't just going to suddenly become vegan, and we're not going to have this problem with, huge amounts of chickens and cows and shit that we have no idea what to do with. The animal products industry is going to slowly die out, and then we're going to be left with just a few, cows, pigs, and chickens, and those things can just live on farm sanctuaries. I'm sure some people keep them as pets, but we're not going to have this huge issue with the world just one day just entirely becoming vegan, and then, oh, what are we going to do with all these billions of animals? No, it's just going to slowly die out, and then we're going to have, just a few to deal with. Do you ever get creeped out by the attention you get from being on YouTube? No. Usually when I go downtown, I meet at least one person who watches my videos, and I just think it's funny. I don't really get creeped out at all. How do you feel about vegans who do steroids? I really don't care if anyone does steroids. It's a personal choice whether you want to do them or not. What I care about is when people like Lex Fitness or Furious Pete say they're natural, and then they try and sell these bullshit supplements and products, when obviously it's the gear that's making them look that way and perform at, such a high level. So I don't care if anyone's on steroids, whether you're vegan or not. It's, just the lies and bullshit that goes along with it that I have a problem with. Bioavailability of protein sources, meat protein sources being way more bioavailable than plant protein sources. Do you know some studies refuting this, or could you explain if this is right or wrong? Most studies show that plant protein sources are less bioavailable than animal protein sources. Does it matter? No, it fucking doesn't. Sugar is more bioavailable than potatoes or brown rice. Does that make sugar healthier for you? Does it mean it improves athletic performance compared to potatoes or rice? No, bioavailability is just another bullshit argument that really doesn't fucking matter, that, you know, these people try and use to say meat's better than plants, when it's really not. You have to look at food from a holistic perspective. Just because, you know, a certain food might have a different property than another, it doesn't make it necessarily better or worse. What do you think of an 80-10-10 raw vegan diet? I know you say it's harder to get nutrients and calories, yet don't you think it has some logic behind it? I mean, aren't raw and vegetables our natural foods, taking into consideration the length of time it takes to evolve as humans versus the time we've been eating cooked foods? Plus, I think a whole food must be a raw food, since cooking changes properties of food such as water content, etc. I read Dr. Graham's book, and honestly, I don't have the knowledge to prove him wrong. Thanks. Well, human beings are the only species on the planet where it's very apparent that cooked foods have been a part of our natural diet for a very long time, and it's not a matter of just a few 100,000 years, it's over 1 million years that we've been eating cooked food, so that's quite a long time to evolve to a diet containing cooked foods. And we also see variations in our amylase copy genes compared to our great ape ancestors, that it's very clear that we have made specific adaptations to deal with cooked starches, like grains and root vegetables. We produce far more amylase genes to digest starches than our great ape ancestors. So that's very clear evidence that cooked foods are a part of our natural diet. There's also nothing in the medical literature that shows there's any detriment to eating cooked foods, and the only studies on raw vegan diets have shown that they tend to be nutritionally deficient and harder to extract nutrients from. I've seen a few studies that show raw vegans tend to be deficient in vitamin A, which might seem really weird because they do eat a lot of fruits and green vegetables. But cooking food frees up a lot of these nutrients and makes them easier to absorb and digest. So there's a lot of benefits to including cooked foods into your diet, and there aren't any medical experts that suggest a raw vegan diet, including Dr. T. Colin Campbell, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and Dr. Michael Greger. There's just no research supporting it, and people like Dr. Doug Graham, he's not a real doctor, he's just a chiropractor, and I don't think he's even allowed to practice anymore. So don't listen to guys like him, listen to guys like Dr. Michael Greger who actually know what they're talking about, and definitely include some cooked foods into your diet, because there's just very clear evidence that it's beneficial. And last question for the first part of the Q&A. Hey, I have a problem with filling my calorie intake being vegan. Can you help me out with some tricks of the trade? Sure, if you're having trouble getting in enough calories and you're eating a lot of raw fruits and veggies, then you definitely want to eat more cooked starches, particularly grains. Rice, oats, and especially barley are 3 of the best. It should be really easy to get in enough calories eating those foods. And if you're still having a lot of trouble, then up your fat intake. High-fat foods are a lot more calorie dense. Nuts, seeds, and avocados are really great. Generally, I recommend keeping the fat intake fairly low, but if you're having a lot of trouble getting in enough calories and eating more grains isn't doing it for you, then you really just have to get in enough calories, and upping your fat intake is a good idea.
Beef. What a relief. When will this poisonous product cease? This is another public service announcement. You can believe it or you can doubt it. Let us begin now with the cow. The way it gets to your plate and how.